The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Federation sparkled like a jewel, its crystalline walls refracting light from a dozen different stars. High Admiral Kenna Martinez stood at the center of it all, her dress uniform crisp despite the 6-hour wait, while representatives of over 30 spacefaring civilizations looked down at her with varying degrees of disdain. "You mean to tell us," began Archspeaker Vilix, his translucent tentacles rippling with barely contained amusement, "that your species still uses chemical propulsion for atmospheric flight and projectile weapons?" The chamber filled with clicking sounds, the equivalent of alien laughter. Martinez kept her expression neutral, though her jaw tightened slightly. After 20 years of military service, she'd learned when to hold her tongue. This was one of those times. "Indeed," she replied simply. "They've served us well." A Zenthari representative, all chrome and angles, leaned forward. "Serve you well. Your species has barely reached your own solar system's edge. The Zenthari mastered gravitic propulsion before we left our atmosphere." "Different paths to the same destination," Martinez offered diplomatically. "No," the Zenthari countered, "inefficient paths to inferior results. We've reviewed your military capabilities. Primitive targeting systems, reliance on human pilots instead of quantum AI, and your ships still need reaction mass for propulsion. It's quaint." More clicking laughter filled the chamber. Martinez noticed how it echoed off the crystal walls, amplifying the mockery. She also noticed how the chamber's acoustics created dead zones, places where sound didn't carry well. "Interesting. The Federation cannot accept Earth as a full member," Vilix announced. "You may continue as an observing protectorate, but until your civilization advances sufficiently." He let the sentence hang. Martinez bowed slightly. "We understand. Earth thanks you for your consideration." She turned and walked out, her boots silent on the polished floor. Her aide, Lieutenant Chen, fell into step beside her as they left the chamber. "They're not even trying to hide their contempt anymore," he muttered. "Good," Martinez replied, surprising him. "Did you notice the Zenthari's reaction when we mentioned our targeting systems?" Chen frowned. "They laughed, like everyone else." "No, before that. They leaned forward. They're curious, even if they won't admit it. And did you see how the Rixians kept their primary sensory clusters pointed at us the whole time?" "Admiral." Martinez smiled tightly. "They think we're primitive because we don't follow their technological path. But they're missing something fundamental about humanity, Lieutenant. We don't evolve in straight lines." Back on the Earth ship Nautilus, Martinez settled into her command chair and opened a secure channel to Earth Command. General Santos' hologram appeared before her, his dark eyes intent. "How did it go?" he asked, though his expression suggested he already knew. "Exactly as expected," Martinez replied. "They're convinced we're barely past throwing rocks at each other. The Zenthari were particularly condescending about our targeting systems." Santos nodded. "Good. The Zenthari are handling security for next month's Federation Technology Exchange. Speaking of which, how's Project Longbow coming along?" Martinez pulled up a classified file on her neural link. "Dr. Patel says they've cracked it. Turns out our primitive targeting systems gave us exactly what we needed, a foundation in ballistic calculations that their gravitic systems never required. And they still haven't figured out why we keep using human pilots." "No," Martinez smiled. "They think it's because we can't build good enough AI. They don't understand that humans can improvise in ways their quantum computers can't predict." Santos' hologram flickered as he leaned forward. "Keep playing the fool, Admiral. Let them think Earth is just a backwater trying to play catch-up. In the meantime, get Longbow ready. If the Craven make their move like intelligence suggests." "We'll be ready," Martinez assured him. "They think our reliance on human pilots is a weakness. They don't realize we've turned it into our greatest strength." The transmission ended, and Martinez turned to the viewport, watching the stars. The Federation thought Earth was primitive because humans still used chemical rockets alongside their newer technologies. They didn't understand that humanity hadn't abandoned the old ways out of inability. They'd kept them out of wisdom. Sometimes the oldest solutions were the best ones, and sometimes being underestimated was the greatest advantage of all. In her quarters later that night, Martinez reviewed the classified files on Project Longbow. The diagram showed what looked like outdated targeting systems, the kind the Federation had mocked. But hidden within those primitive systems was something revolutionary, a hybrid approach that combined old-school ballistic calculations with cutting-edge quantum mechanics. The Federation races had jumped straight to gravitic technology, bypassing chemical propulsion entirely. They'd never learned to calculate trajectories through atmosphere, never had to compensate for wind and friction, and the Coriolis effect. Their targeting systems worked perfectly in space, but they'd sacrificed versatility for advancement. Humanity had kept one foot in its past while stepping into the future. And soon, that decision would prove its worth. "Admiral," Chen's voice came through her comm. "We're picking up some unusual readings from the Craven border. Their ships are moving in patterns we haven't seen before." Martinez closed the files and straightened her uniform. "Inform Earth Command. It seems we might get to test Longbow sooner than we expected." The Federation thought humanity was primitive. Soon they'd learn that sometimes the old ways were the best ways, especially when combined with new innovations they'd never even imagined. And if the Craven were really making their move, well, humanity was ready to show the galaxy that being underestimated was just another tactical advantage. The stars continued their eternal dance outside her viewport, indifferent to the schemes of humans and aliens alike. But soon, very soon, they would bear witness to something extraordinary. The moment when humanity's primitive approach would change the face of galactic warfare forever. Martinez smiled. "Let them laugh. The best victories were the ones your enemy never saw coming." Lieutenant Chen stood at the observation deck of Earth's Lunar Defense Station, watching as another primitive chemical rocket launched from the surface. The Federation observers stationed on Earth would see exactly what they expected: a struggling civilization still relying on outdated technology. They wouldn't notice how the exhaust trail contained quantum-encrypted data bursts, or how the rocket's inefficient trajectory was actually plotting complex gravitational maps of local space. "Beautiful launch," Dr. Patel said, joining him at the window. Her dark eyes reflected the rocket's fading trail. The Federation representatives filed another report today. "Apparently, we're charmingly persistent in our use of obsolete technology." Chen smiled. "Did they notice the gravitic anomalies?" "Of course not. They're too busy laughing at our primitive sensors to realize we're using the rockets to map gravity wells they don't even know exist." She handed him a tablet. Project Longbow's final test was successful. The hybrid targeting system works better than we hoped. The tablet showed a simulation of what looked like standard ballistic trajectories, until you noticed how they bent in impossible ways, following paths that shouldn't exist. By combining humanity's deep understanding of traditional ballistics with quantum mechanics, they'd created something entirely new. "The Craven are getting bolder," Chen noted, watching another set of data scroll past. "Their ships are probing Federation space more frequently. Intelligence thinks they're planning something big." "Let them." Patel's voice was firm. "While the Federation mocks us and the Craven plot, we're completing the largest tactical mapping operation in human history. Every primitive rocket launch adds to our database. Every obsolete sensor builds our understanding of local space-time." In her private lab beneath the lunar surface, Patel pulled up the complete Project Longbow specifications. The targeting system looked deceptively simple until you understood what it could do. Traditional ballistic calculations provided a framework that quantum computers couldn't replicate, while quantum mechanics allowed for possibilities that classical physics deemed impossible. "Admiral Martinez is meeting with the Federation Council again today," Chen said, studying the specs. "More mockery about our developmental delays in adopting standard galactic technology." Perfect timing. Patel brought up another display. this one showing the Craven fleet movements. Our latest analysis suggests they'll make their move within the week. They think the Federation's gravitic defenses are impenetrable. They never considered someone might attack through normal space. Why would they? The Federation abandoned chemical propulsion centuries ago. Their entire defensive doctrine is built around gravitic technology. Patel's smile was sharp. They forgot that sometimes the old ways are the best ways, especially when combined with new innovations. Deep in Earth's heavily shielded military command center, General Santos reviewed the final preparations. Project Longbow had transformed Earth's outdated chemical rockets into something unprecedented. Weapons that could strike through paths the Federation's sensors couldn't detect, using trajectories their computers couldn't predict. The Craven ships are maintaining their pattern, his aide reported. They think they're being subtle, but our primitive sensors are tracking their quantum wake signatures. Santos nodded. The Federation races had become so reliant on gravitic technology that they'd forgotten the basics of space warfare. They thought humanity's continued use of chemical propulsion and ballistic calculations was a sign of technological backwardness. They didn't understand that humanity had chosen to master the fundamentals before reaching for the stars. In orbit, Admiral Martinez watched as another routine rocket launch mapped another section of local space. The Federation observers would file their usual reports about Earth's stubborn reliance on chemical propulsion. They wouldn't realize that each launch was a brushstroke in a much larger picture. A complete tactical map of local spacetime that revealed paths and possibilities their gravitic sensors couldn't detect. Project Longbow is ready, Chen reported, joining her on the bridge. All ships are equipped with the hybrid targeting systems. The Federation still thinks we're running combat drills with outdated technology. Martine studied the tactical display, watching the Craven ships edge closer to Federation space. They thought they were being clever, using quantum fluctuations to mask their movements. They didn't realize that humanity's primitive sensors, designed to track objects through atmosphere and vacuum alike, could see them clear as day. How long until they make their move? She asked. Intelligence suggests within 48 hours. They're waiting for the Federation's defensive grid to cycle, a vulnerability in their gravitic systems that they think only they know about. Martinez smiled. A vulnerability we discovered using chemical rockets and obsolete sensors. Sometimes the simple solutions are the best ones. The stars wheeled overhead, their light reaching Earth through paths both simple and quantum. Humanity had learned to navigate both, while their alien counterparts had forgotten that progress didn't always mean abandoning the past. Soon, very soon, the galaxy would learn that Earth's primitive technology was anything but. The Craven would learn it first, and the Federation would be forced to watch as their assumptions about humanity crumbled. Send word to all commands, Martinez ordered. Project Longbow is go. Let's show them what primitive technology can really do. The pieces were in place. The trap was set, and humanity's greatest strength, its ability to combine the old with the new in ways no one else had imagined, was about to change the face of galactic warfare forever. The Federation thought they were watching a primitive species struggle with basic technology. Instead, they were witnessing the quiet preparation for a revolution in space combat, one that would prove that sometimes the most advanced solution was a combination of the old and the new. And in the darkness between the stars, the Craven ships continued their approach, unaware that humanity's primitive technology was about to teach them a lesson they'd never forget. The Craven attack came exactly as intelligence predicted. Their warships dropped out of quantum space directly into the Federation's defensive grid's blind spot, their gravitic weapons powering up for what they thought would be an overwhelming first strike. Admiral Martinez watched from the bridge of the Nautilus as the Federation's emergency channels erupted with panic. The Zenthari defense fleet scrambled to respond, their sophisticated gravitic drives pushing them to speeds that seemed to mock the primitive chemical engines of Earth's ships. Federation Command is ordering all Allied forces to fall back, Lieutenant Chen reported, his voice carefully neutral. They say our ships would be a liability in the coming battle. Martines allowed herself a small smile, acknowledged their order, then send the signal to commence Operation Longbow. Across Earth's fleet, targeting systems that the Federation had dismissed as obsolete hummed to life. Chemical rockets that had been secretly positioned during routine launches waited in their carefully mapped gravity wells, and human pilots, whose presence had been mocked as a sign of technological backwardness, prepared to demonstrate why artificial intelligence could never fully replace human intuition. The Craven fleet pressed their advantage, their quantum-enhanced sensors focused on the Federation's gravitic defenses. They never saw the first salvo coming. Earth's rockets, guided by the hybrid targeting system of Project Longbow, followed trajectories that the Federation's computers had declared impossible. They curved through spaces that gravitic sensors couldn't detect, accelerated through quantum gaps that AI couldn't predict, and struck with devastating precision. Multiple direct hits confirmed, Chen announced, his professional tone barely containing his satisfaction. The Craven's rear shields never activated. Their systems didn't register the attacks until impact. On the tactical display, the Craven formation broke apart in confusion. Their sophisticated quantum defenses, designed to counter the Federation's gravitic weapons, proved useless against projectiles that followed paths their computers couldn't comprehend. Federation Command is demanding to know what's happening. Communications reported. The Zenthari defense fleet has stopped their retreat. Show them, Martines ordered. Full tactical data, uncoded. Let them see exactly what primitive technology can do. The next wave of Earth's attack demonstrated the full capability of Project Longbow. Rockets loaded with quantum disruption warheads followed ballistic trajectories that twisted through gravitational anomalies, striking Craven ships from angles their defenders had thought physically impossible. Craven fleet is attempting to regroup, Tactical reported. They're trying to adjust their shields to cover these new attack vectors. Too late, Martines said softly. They don't understand. You can't defend against an attack if your computers can't predict where it's coming from. Human pilots, their neural links combining centuries-old dogfighting instincts with quantum awareness, pushed their ships through maneuvers that made the Federation's eye-driven vessels look clumsy and predictable. They exploited gaps in space-time that only human intuition could navigate, striking and vanishing before the enemy's quantum sensors could lock on. The Craven's formation, once proud and precise, had devolved into chaos. Their commanders, trained to rely on sophisticated quantum computing for tactical decisions, found themselves unable to predict or counter attacks that followed both classical and quantum physics simultaneously. Federation Command is requesting permission to study our targeting data, Chen reported, unable to keep the irony from his voice. The Zenthari representative specifically wants to know how we achieved such precision with primitive ballistic calculations. Martinez's smile widened slightly. Tell them we'll be happy to discuss technology sharing after the battle. For now, let's focus on saving their defense grid. The Craven fleet, realizing their carefully planned attack had turned into a disaster, attempted to retreat. But Earth's ships, their obsolete chemical engines precisely positioned in mapped gravity wells, were already waiting along their escape routes. All ships, execute final phase, Martines ordered. Show them why we still use human pilots. What followed was a display of combat prowess that would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. Earth's pilots, combining instinct and quantum awareness, herded the Craven ships into killing zones where precisely placed rockets waited to strike from impossible angles. The Federation's observers watched in stunned silence as humanity's primitive technologies systematically dismantled one of the most sophisticated fleets in known space. Every shot followed trajectories that their computers insisted couldn't exist. Every maneuver demonstrated precision that their AI claimed was impossible. Craven flagship is signaling surrender, communications announced. Their quantum core is destabilizing. They're requesting immediate assistance. Martines nodded. Move in to assist, and inform Federation Command that Earth's primitive rescue protocols are at their disposal. As Earth's ships moved to secure their victory, the Federation's representatives were already demanding explanations. How had humanity turned obsolete technology into something that could outmaneuver quantum-guided ships? Why had they maintained chemical propulsion when gravitic drives were clearly superior? But those answers would come later. For now, Martinez watched as her fleet demonstrated one final lesson: that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in abandoning its past, but in finding new ways to use old knowledge. The Federation had laughed at Earth's primitive technology. Now they would learn that true advancement didn't always mean forgetting where you came from. The stars continued their eternal dance, witnesses to a battle that would change the galaxy's understanding of what primitive really meant. The Federation's Emergency Council chamber had lost its air of superiority. Gone were the clicking laughs and condescending glances. Instead, the assembled representatives watched in tense silence as Admiral Martinez presented the full capabilities of Project Longbow. "Your targeting system shouldn't work," the Zenthari representative insisted, his chrome surface reflecting the holographic display of Earth's hybrid technology. "The mathematical principles are contradictory. Only if you assume classical and quantum physics can't coexist," Dr. Paddle responded, standing beside Martinez. "We kept our chemical rockets precisely because they gave us insights your gravitic technology never could. Every launch taught us something new about how space-time really works." The hologram showed a Longbow missile following a trajectory that curved through 5 different gravity wells simultaneously. The Federation's quantum computers still couldn't predict its path. "But your sensors," the Rixian delegate began. All 4 eye stalks focused on the display. "We monitored them. They were primitive, basic radiological scanning systems." Martinez allowed herself a small nod. "The sensors you saw were exactly what we showed you. What you missed was how we used them. Every primitive scan mapped quantum fluctuations your gravity sensors ignored. Sometimes the old ways see things the new ways miss." The chamber erupted in urgent discussions, representatives finally beginning to understand the full scope of their misconception. Humanity hadn't clung to old technology out of inability. They'd weaponized it in ways the Federation had never imagined possible. In orbit above a secured Craven warship, Lieutenant Chen supervised the prisoner transfer. The captured crew watched in bewilderment as Earth's primitive ships maintained perfect formation without gravitic stabilizers. "Your ships?" a Craven officer finally asked, mandibles clicking nervously. "How do they move like that with chemical propulsion?" Chen smiled. "The same way we beat your fleet. We never forgot the basics of space travel. Every limitation became an opportunity to innovate." Back in the council chamber, Dr. Patel was explaining the neural interfaces that allowed human pilots to navigate quantum space using instinct and training. "You dismissed our reliance on human pilots as primitive," she said, bringing up brain scan data. "But human intuition can perceive patterns that AI can't predict. By combining that with quantum awareness, we created something entirely new." The arch-speaker Vilix, his tentacles now still with attention rather than amusement, leaned forward. "Why reveal this now? Why not demonstrate these capabilities earlier? Would you have believed us?" Martinez asked simply. "You were so convinced of our primitiveness that you never questioned why we maintained technologies you'd abandoned. That assumption became our greatest advantage." In the captured Craven flagship's engineering section, Federation scientists studied the damage caused by Longbow missiles with growing amazement. The hybrid weapons had somehow bypassed quantum shields while simultaneously disrupting gravitic systems, something their models had deemed impossible. "The missiles followed laws of physics we didn't even know existed," a Zenthari engineer admitted, scanning the impact patterns. "By combining classical ballistics with quantum mechanics, they created attack vectors our defenses couldn't comprehend." Martinez watched as understanding dawned across the council chamber. The Federation had built its entire defensive doctrine on the assumption that gravitic technology was the pinnacle of advancement. They'd never considered that older methods, refined and combined with new innovations, could create something revolutionary. "Earth requests full membership in the Federation," she announced, her voice carrying clearly through the now silent chamber. Not as a primitive species to be uplifted, but as equals who took a different path to the stars. The silence stretched for a long moment before the archspeaker spoke. The Federation acknowledges its error in judgment. Your species' approach to technology is unprecedented. We would be honored to learn from your innovations. Dr. Paddle brought up one final display. A complete map of local spacetime showing quantum corridors and gravitational paths that the Federation's sensors had never detected. This is just the beginning, she said. Imagine what we can discover together, combining your advancement with our perspective. As the council chamber erupted in excited discussion, Lieutenant Chen received a transmission from Earth Command. The Craven defeat had sent shockwaves through the galaxy. 3 other species, previously dismissed as primitive, had requested Earth's assistance in developing their own hybrid technologies. It seems we're not the only ones who chose to keep our old ways, he reported to Martinez. The galaxy might be more diverse than the Federation assumed. Martinez nodded, watching the Federation representatives debate the implications of humanity's innovations. The galaxy was about to enter a new era, one where progress didn't mean abandoning the past, but building upon it in ways no one had imagined possible. The stars wheeled overhead, their light reaching Earth through both quantum space and normal vacuum, a constant reminder that the universe was more complex than any single perspective could comprehend. Humanity had proven that true advancement meant understanding both the old and the new, and finding ways to make them work together. The Federation had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the most primitive solution was actually the most sophisticated, if you were innovative enough to see its potential. 6 months after the Craven incident, the galactic landscape had shifted dramatically. The Federation's Grand Assembly Hall, once a place of rigid technological hierarchy, now hosted representatives from dozens of species previously dismissed as developing. Admiral Martinez stood at a podium that had been specially modified to accommodate both gravitic and traditional interfaces, a small but significant symbol of the changes sweeping through galactic civilization. Project Longbow was never just about military applications, she explained to the assembled representatives. It was proof that true innovation comes from understanding all paths of development, not just the most obvious ones. The hall's display showed demonstrations from various species who had begun integrating their traditional technologies with advanced Federation systems. A civilization that had mastered solar sail technology had combined it with quantum mechanics to create ships that could ride light itself through spacetime. Another had evolved from aquatic origins, and their understanding of fluid dynamics had revolutionized gravitic shield design. The Federation's greatest weakness, Dr. Potel added, standing beside Martinez, was assuming there was only one path to the stars. Humanity proved that keeping our primitive technology made us stronger, not weaker. In Earth's lunar shipyards, Lieutenant Chen supervised the construction of a new class of vessel. It looked deceptively simple, until you noticed how it incorporated both chemical and gravitic propulsion, its hybrid systems allowing it to navigate paths through space that neither technology could manage alone. The Zenthari engineers still can't believe how our targeting computers work, his aide commented, watching quantum-enhanced missiles being loaded into traditional launch tubes. Chen smiled. They're learning. Yesterday I saw one of them studying ancient Earth naval warfare texts. Sometimes you have to understand the past to innovate the future. The Craven, humbled by their defeat, had undergone their own transformation. Their new ambassador to Earth, standing near the back of the hall, watched the proceedings with thoughtful interest. Their fleet now incorporated hybrid technology of their own, combining their quantum expertise with lessons learned from their defeat. We thought advancement meant abandoning the old ways, the ambassador admitted to Martinez after the session. We never considered that the old ways might hold secrets the new ways had forgotten. The Federation itself had changed fundamentally. The hierarchical structure based purely on technological advancement had been replaced by a more nuanced understanding of development. Species were now evaluated on their innovations, not just their technology level. Earth's demonstration proved something we had forgotten. Archspeaker Vilix announced to the assembly, "The path to the stars is not a single road, but a network of possibilities. Each species brings its own wisdom, its own perspective." In orbit above Earth, a joint training exercise demonstrated the new reality. Ships using every conceivable form of propulsion, from solar sails to gravity drives to chemical rockets, maneuvered in perfect harmony. Each technology complemented the others, creating possibilities that no single approach could achieve. "The galaxy is entering a renaissance," Dr. Patil observed, watching the display. Every species is re-examining their primitive technologies, finding new ways to combine them with advanced systems. We didn't just change military doctrine. We changed how the galaxy thinks about progress. Martinez nodded, remembering the mockery that had once filled these halls. The greatest innovations often come from the most unexpected places. We just had to remind them of that. The Federation's Scientific Council had been transformed as well. Instead of focusing solely on advancing gravitic and quantum technology, they now studied the fundamental principles behind every species' development. Ancient techniques were being combined with cutting-edge science in ways that were rewriting the books on what was possible. Humanity's greatest contribution wasn't Project Longbow, the Zenthari representative admitted during a private session. It was showing us that our assumptions about progress were wrong. Real advancement doesn't mean abandoning the past. It means building upon it. As the assembly concluded, Martinez received a transmission from Earth Command. More species were emerging from the shadows, revealing innovations that combined their traditional methods with advanced technology. The galaxy was discovering that diversity in technological development was a strength, not a weakness. "We never wanted to prove we were superior," Martinez told the assembly in her closing remarks. "We wanted to prove that every path to the stars has value." The future belongs not to those who chase a single form of advancement, but to those who understand that true progress comes from combining all forms of knowledge. The stars continued their eternal dance, but now they were watched by a civilization that had learned to see them through many different lenses. The galaxy had discovered that the path to advancement wasn't about abandoning the old ways, but about finding new ways to use ancient wisdom. Humanity had changed the galaxy not by proving their superiority, but by proving that every species' journey to the stars had value. In doing so, they had helped create a future where innovation meant more than just technological advancement. It meant understanding that sometimes the oldest solutions, combined with the newest discoveries, created the greatest possibilities of all. The age of mockery was over. The age of learning had begun.